Okay, what's up, everybody? This is episode number 2 of the Craig Smith podcast.
Sound alarm. Sound alarm. Sound alarm.
I'm coming at you here on a very special Martin Luther King Day edition. It is currently January 15th, 2018, and a lot of stuff has been going on. I don't know if I want to tackle current events, but I will say a couple things for me. Number one, I got my BMI in, and just it's good to be in a place where everything that I've been working toward in music starts to show itself. I talk about this throughout the year very often. I had like Empire placements. I had a Star this year, Spider-Man, and on my BMI, I noticed like Basketball Wives, which I didn't know. There was Entertainment Tonight and Insider, and those are a few placements that are. I think those came from a trailer that I had over the summer for a movie called Rough Night starring Scarlett Johansson. But it's interesting. It's pretty cool to be validated in such a way so that, when I tell people, I make my living off music, I'm not lying and I can show you proof. So Martin Luther King Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day is here. And I kind of wanted to just touch on, and I'm also doing a Facebook Live, so anybody that has any questions, comments, feel free to weigh in. But I kind of wanted to talk briefly just on the legacy of Dr. King, what it is and what it isn't, like in this very abstract way. Not a very abstract way, a very subtle way. The legacy of Dr. King, I feel like, has been diluted into a passive sort of, we're all about peace and, coming together, and sure, Dr. King was about that, but the fight was about equality. The fight was about voting rights. The fight was about Black people being able to be counted among the establishment's definition of what a human being is. And though I've always sort of admired Malcolm X's approach to sort of the same problem, I don't like that Dr. King has sort of been dumbed down by this dude was like the most hated Black man at the time. Like, he got killed for a reason. It wasn't the popular opinion among folks that in a few years we should immortalize this man in stone at our nation's capital. That's not what DC was thinking. Keep in mind, like, J. Edgar Hoover kept tabs on this man, like wiretaps, and the president wasn't really. By historical accounts, the president and Dr. King were friendly, but behind the scenes, knowing the politics of the situation, like, Dr. King was public enemy, and he was heralded by the folks at that time as being a civil rights leader. But the reason that people would the police would sick dogs on him, and the government wouldn't help. The SNCC individuals, the Dr. Kings, the Lord forgive me, the Lewises of the world, the Jesse Jacksons, is because they were a threat. They were a threat. Like, let's not forget that for most of white America at the time, most of white America now, like your grandparents, great-grandparents, did not like Dr. King. They did not fool with that movement. And so I think that to utilize this revolutionary person and revolutionary moment in history, to utilize that as sort of a way for mainstream people who don't want us to remember the racism of our country, they're utilizing that as a way to say, Dr. King was nonviolent, so why are y'all protesting? Dr. King was nonviolent, so why are y'all burning shit down? Like, that's the agenda of folks that want to keep us suppressed. But but do not be fooled. Do not be dismayed. The I Have a Dream speech was nice, but Dr. King was starting some shit. And it may have been a different message. They may not have fought the police. Hey, Chief. Oh, hey, Taya. They may not have fought the police or drawn guns on them the way that we've seen other people do. But at the same time, their message was still radical enough that they needed to be silenced by the establishment. So on this Dr. King Monday, where all the banks are closed and I can't deposit anything, let's bear in mind that today we're not celebrating peace and equality. We're celebrating a man who decided to stand up against a machine. All right. So also on this day, speaking of equality and peace and whatnot, y'all president, number 45, has done the most again. And you got Republicans and Democrats both kind of backtracking. Did he say that? Did he not say that? And it speaks to a further disintegration of credibility in our politics. So what I'll have you do, and this is sort of the other end of the spectrum for me, because I'm usually on the side of watch our federal elections and watch how they're conducted and watch how much your vote doesn't matter. But and you know what that actually plays into it's not just your federal vote, but also your more centralized local, municipal, state level voting as well is sort of, the zoning, if you want to get into it, the gerrymandering that goes on. Basically, the reason why Donald Trump won the election is because the lines are drawn so that the people that will vote for him are all in the same place, and your electoral college votes go toward that. Anyway, we're living in a time where if you're not careful, and I'll speak to Joshua Gant was just in here doing his podcast, Barbershop Talk, which I will encourage y'all to check out once it goes live. But he talked about he used this phrase that I really liked. He talks about the it's like a casual protesting. That's not the phrase he used, but it's like we've gotten into the habit of looking for shit to be offended about. And then we'll find a million articles about it, and then we'll like become stuck in that. It's sort of the same way, like if I tell my son to go clean up his room, and he don't want to clean up his room, so he trips over something and makes the biggest deal of it. You think his leg was broke. That's sort of how, and it's all a ploy for him not to go clean up his room. And so in a lot of ways, and this is sort of what Joshua Gant was getting at too, is how much of this stuff that we're complaining about and protesting about, not including the murders of black people, but how much of the rate, like H&M don't love you. It's a corporation. It's an overseas corporation at that. But how much of this outrage are we using as a way to sort of mask our own as a community inability to pull ourselves up, right? So in the spirit of Dr. King, in the spirit of where we are as a nation, just one by one, maybe it's useful for us to begin looking at the things that are going on and saying, where do I fit in this? What things are really a problem and what things are a distraction for us? I talked to a friend of mine yesterday, my friend Greg Enemy. He's actually my best friend. I've been knowing him since we were 5 years old. And we were talking through just some interpersonal things, and we got on this topic of self-acceptance, self-love, and sort of this fear of success. And I was telling him it's interesting that, like, for me, and I talked about this with Joe Macklin as well, but it's interesting that there are times where I feel like if I'm successful, it'll go against my authenticity. It'll go against my originality, right? And so I won't excel. I won't strive and do better, and I won't go forth and conquer, because I feel like that means that I'm becoming somebody I don't like, or I'm becoming somebody that everybody wants me to be. And along with that, for one thing that he talked about, one thing that I can identify with is a lot of times you feel lost. Like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Like, there are so many things I could do. And I hope I'm speaking to somebody that feels like there are so many things I could do with my life. I could go work for this company. I could start a business. I could cook. I could draw. I could, do music or whatever. And it's hard to nail down a certain thing. And one thing that's kind of eased my mind when it comes to that is choosing to do it all, but do it all in very concentrated, segmented pieces. So for January, I'm working basically as a videographer, as a filmmaker, and this is my job right now. Of course, I'm still doing like music for licensing, but in order to sort of keep myself in line, I guess you could say, I'm doing a lot of video work. Next month, it might be something completely different. And the month after that, it might be completely different. But it's a way to look at what you want to do, or all the things that you want to do, and give yourself some room to try them. See, a lot of times what happens is we get so bogged down into thinking, I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now, so that must mean that I'm wasting my time and I'm a failure. That if I don't figure this out right now, it means that I'm letting myself or somebody down. And that hurts you in so many ways, because it really does get in the way of you being productive. One, because whatever you say about yourself, your narrative has a tendency of becoming truth. So if you tell yourself, I'm gonna go on a diet, and then at the same time you also tell yourself, I know I'm not gonna stick to this diet. It's gonna be too hard. You'll eat donuts that night, and it's a way of fulfilling this safety zone that you've concocted in your mind. At the same time, even if you don't all the way believe it, start telling yourself different. If you start to create little wins for yourself. So if this month, I put down, last month I put down how much I wanted to make this month. And it's a sizable amount, but working for yourself, basically, it's an amount that will be tough to reach, but if I apply myself, I can do it. So I looked at where things were this half of the month, and I'm halfway there. And it's because I haven't been telling myself I can't do it. Anybody that knows me from a year ago and then has spent any time around me for the last few weeks knows that I've been on this like excellence and this excellence and this self-love and success thing. Like, this is an ongoing thing. This is a new lifestyle for me, but it really does show in the numbers. Like I was tempted to, I was talking about finances and I was looking at this number and I was like, I don't know if I can do the same thing I did the first half of this month, the second half of this month. I don't know. And then I had to check myself, because what I was doing was I was narrating the future, right? And when you narrate the future, it has a tendency to come true in certain ways. So if I'm talking about the next couple weeks and the workload that'll be there, and how I feel I'll be able to maintain, I'll begin to set traps or set myself up for success in certain ways, so that either I am successful with this goal or I end up tanking. So that's one thing. Going back to the self-love piece, this tendency that we have, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one, but this tendency that we have to say, whenever something goes wrong, you're a failure, or, oh my God, I can't believe that you're that stupid. Like, talking to yourself in a way that if you were talking to anybody else, you would never say these things. Or if somebody were saying these things to you, you would never accept. It's such a failure. You don't deserve to live. Like, these things are real thoughts that people have, that I have, and I experience on a normal basis. When somebody says something to you that's counter to how you feel, like if you feel like you've been killing it and somebody says you're lazy, and so then you adopt that as a mantra. I'm lazy. I'm so lazy. Or you feel like you could have done more with the day that you just had. Like, see, I knew it. I'm a failure. What do you expect? I'm a failure. How dare I think I could achieve more? How dare I think I could do more? Those self-love pieces that affect how you live your life and how you see the world. See, it's not just the depression. It's not just the anxiety that you have to worry about when you start thinking that way, when you start talking to yourself like, I'm a failure, I suck, I'm stupid, I'm an asshole, I'm a piece of shit. It's not just the self-love and the internal things. It starts to manifest in how you treat other people too. So you may not notice it, but one thing that ends up happening is you start telling yourself how terrible you are and how much of a asshole or piece of shit you are. Then you start dropping the ball around the people who need you. And once that happens, it's not that you didn't want to fulfill whatever it is you set out to fulfill for these people. It's that you give yourself an identity that is counter to what you say you want. And when those people that need you see that you're operating counter to what you say you want, then it makes them question how much they need you. It causes resentment, causes disappointment. It causes some self-denial, some self-loathing in other people, in children especially. If they see that the person that they rely on, and this is me preaching to myself, if they see that the person that they rely on is dropping the ball, but not just dropping the ball, but saying, I'm a piece of shit. Like, it really makes them look at their life and look at you and say, well, what does that say about me? What does that say about me? Like, I think that this person is awesome. I think that this person, my dad or my aunt or my uncle, it has it together. But, they're kind of weird right now. Like, kids don't have a vernacular to say, oh, that they're depressed, or oh, they're stressed, or oh, they're anxiety. All they see is happy, angry. This person's yelling. Everything is very simple for kids. Kids are resilient, but a lot of the effects don't show up until later of what's happened as a kid. And so the danger with playing into this narrative that you give yourself of I'm less than, or I'm lowly, or I'm not good, or not good enough. The danger of that is that it manifests itself in how people around you see you, but not only you, see themselves. So self-love and giving yourself self-love is not just about you. And it took me a long time to figure that out. Like, and by long time, I mean like hours thinking about it at night. Like, since I was 12 years old, dealing with depression and suicidal ideation and these thoughts of I'm not worthy or I'm less than. And what ended up happening is that through failure after failure and argument after argument and relationships beginning and ending and taking a good hard look at what I was doing to myself when it came to how I was looking at my identity with depression or anxiety or success and failure, how I looked at myself, I did not realize was beginning to manifest itself in so many other ways. And so I would think that everybody should just accept that I'm depressed. And in a lot of ways, people should, like for the longest time, mental health has been discarded as something that, crazy people go through. But what what I'm realizing is that even with society starting to turn around and people accepting the things that people who deal with clinical depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder and things like that go through, there's still, it's almost like the blanket statement is now you have a reason to live below. And this is not for the people who are clinically and need medication. If you need medication, you need medication. But for me, at least, I'll speak for me and for some people that I know are functional and it's not as serious. It gives me a reason to say, what did you expect from me? This is my identity. You know, what else can you ask from me? I can't take this much on my plate. You know, those things that that plague us as a society, as people internally, because I'd venture to guess there are way more people dealing with stress, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, dealing with imposter syndrome, dealing with childhood trauma and things like that. Like, it's most people who deal with anything in that spectrum. But what comes out of that are people who are resilient, people who are not resilient and take that on as an identity and kind of live in it, and people that really, really need, actually everybody, in my opinion, needs some measure of therapy. But there are ways out of it that you can take hold of yourself.
Sound of alarm. Sound of alarm. Sound of alarm.